They was not scared of Suge Knight. They was terrified of Suge Knight. Terrified to death.
You're a big guy, and there are people who are afraid of you. You know that, don't you? Afraid of him, for sure.
The story of Suge Knight is one that will be remembered, and it will definitely be talked about for as long as hip-hop prevails. It's a real-life story which digs far beyond your typical music industry games and beef. There's no doubt, Suge Knight has put fear into the bones of many artists, producers, and executives who foolishly questioned his authority.
So feared.
I don't look at it as fear, I look at it as respected.
But who are the rappers who aren't afraid of him? Suge Knight casts a long shadow over 90s West Coast acts, so it's a wonder why he hasn't been a target of Suge Knight. Coolio, who was sorta affiliated with Ice Cube early on, who was an enemy of Dr. Dre for a little while, and who was Suge's partner at Death Row for 4 years. But nah, it looks like Suge never bothered to sink Coolio's Fantastic Voyage. Coolio hasn't openly come forward about his beef with Suge, but his silence when asked about it says it all. Maybe Suge Knight deep down just really loves hip-hop. Maybe he's the purest, most passionate hip-hop head in the game and no one knows it. And maybe, in the era of Silk the Shocker, Suge Knight had just had enough. During an interview with DJ Vlad, the New Orleans native explained how Snoop Dogg was able to leave the strong grips of Suge Knight at Death Row.
Who the fuck is this guy?
Oh, my bad, Suge. This the homie Snoop.
I forgive you. I ain't gonna do nothing to you. There's niggas outside that want your head right now. I ain't gonna do nothing to you. You gonna go and walk up out here and we're gonna be cool from this day forward. And we've been straight.
And was eventually signed to No Limit Records. With many questioning how the deal went down due to many rumors of Knight's temper flaring up at any given time.
Hold on 1 minute.
Silk says the men worked out the business deal with no real issues. But he couldn't take that mumble-mouth delivery, the offbeat rat-a-tat flow, and the non-existent lyricism. Maybe Suge Knight decided Silk had to go for the good of hip-hop. Suge never came after Silk. He left that to rap critics and the IRS. Eazy-E was no fan of Suge Knight. At one point, he wanted to kill him, according to Ruthless Records co-founder Jerry Heller. Eazy's feelings towards the ex-Death Row Records head were revealed during an interview with UGS Radio's The Master Music Show. Apparently, Eazy had a vendetta against Suge over Dr. Dre.
Suge tried to destroy my record company with the help of others, Dre.
Eazy said, "You know this guy Suge Knight?" I said, "Yeah," Heller recounted. "Well, I'm gonna kill him. This guy's gonna be a problem and I think I should kill him." Speculators have connected the rivalry with Eazy's tragic sickness, and Knight has responded to those claims. Suge has previously served time in prison before for assault convictions and related probation and parole violations, not to mention the homicide charges he also faced, but that's a story for another day. When he was freed in 2003, he appeared on Jimmy Kimmel Live and gave a suspicious-sounding interview.
They got this stuff they get blood from somebody with AIDS. Yeah. And then they shoot you with it.
Oh, so that seems bad.
That's a slow death.
Yeah.
An easy thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Suge's remarks on Fallon are intriguing even if they don't assist us in identifying the potential offender, despite the fact that a feeling of mystery will probably always surround Eazy's passing. In his first interview after being imprisoned, Knight tells The Blast that Dr. Dre is entirely to blame.
Dre came to them first and asked the two guys how much it costs to get rid of me. They said, "What you mean by getting rid of him?" And they said, "Kill him."
This information is not new. In 2016, Knight vowed to sue Dre for $300 million, claiming that the rapper, Universal Music, and Apple had attempted to murder him. He now asserts that his recent trial shows his story to be accurate. He describes the situation as a murder-for-hire case, adding they also acquired the paper trail with all the checks and confirmations of when they talked to the witnesses, indicating that Dr. Dre came to them first and asked the two guys how much it cost to get rid of me. "What do you mean get rid of?" they questioned, and then they commanded, "Kill him." The two of them have been at odds since the 1990s. Knight asserts that he had a lifetime management agreement with Dre that entitled him to 30% of Dre's earnings, including the $3 billion valuation of Beats by Dre's sale to Apple in 2014. Knight claims that the first attempt on his life, a shooting in a nightclub in which he was shot 7 times, was the result of his efforts to get that money. Knight says Dre and Universal, the story behind the NWA biopic Straight Outta Compton, paid Clay Bone Sloan $300,000 to kill Knight that day. Knight claimed to be avoiding an ambush when he ran his car over Sloan. Sloan survived, but a second victim named Terry Carter was fatally hit. He claims that the second attempt on his life was what sparked the hit-and-run episode that eventually landed him in jail. In response to the allegations in 2016, a lawyer for Dre said, given that Dre had had zero interaction with Suge since leaving Death Row Records in the year 1996, we hope that Suge's lawyer has lots of malicious prosecution insurance. Suge explains to The Blast when he asked why he accepted a plea deal, so when they assigned me a counsel, he saw me 2 times in 8 months and told me he went to the court and stated he needed help and other attorneys and they rejected him. Because he genuinely doesn't understand the matter and won't succeed, he declared he has no reasonable means of taking on my trial. From his dispute with the publisher of Source magazine, Benzino, to his conflict with the rapper Machine Gun Kelly,
Here, I think my dad's gone crazy. Yeah, Haley, you right.
Eminem is engaged in a number of noteworthy feuds throughout the years. Suge Knight of Death Row is the subject of one of his less well-known disputes. Former G-Unit rapper Bang'em Smurf recently went on Instagram and explained why Eminem almost got into a fight with Suge Knight while wearing a bulletproof vest. The rapper told his followers during the candid social media interview that Knight, the former CEO of Death Row Records, unexpectedly stepped up at the 2003 filming of 50 Cent's music video Into Club.
It's your birthday. We gon' party like it's your birthday.
Smurf claims that at the time Knight came, he was getting a haircut. He learned of Knight's arrival through a buddy and informed him that I'm all the way back in the trailer getting a haircut and stuff, so Shaw Money XL called me saying, yo Suge on the set. Smurf described his response saying, I threw the cape off and shit, I'm awestruck at the moment because I've never seen Suge before, but not everyone was well received by Knight. Smurf reported that the antagonism between Knight, G-Unit, and Dr. Dre almost reached a boiling point. Smurf explained that he was prepared to stand in 50 Cent's corner. I rushed to the side saying, Suge is outside. What are you expecting of me? To blow off his head? In retrospect, he acknowledged that he had been a bit chaotic at the time. The rapper claimed that Mathers, who was outside when Knight arrived, came back with the vest. It was like a standoff, he said. Even though it sounds like a movie, it's actually true. I simply recall, what's up man, said 50 to M. What do you want to do? The former CEO of Death Row Records, according to Smurf, appeared to engage in some intimidation and promptly left with 30 Mexican crew members. Back when Death Row Records was just beginning to take off, Dr. Dre asked a pair of aspiring rappers Linwood and George Stanley. They both would have eventually been given cooler rap names to come in for a recording session. For the two, it was a dream come true, at least until Suge Knight decided to stop by the studio. Linwood, needing to make a call, picked up the closest phone he could find. He didn't realize this particular phone was reserved for calls from drug kingpin Harry O, the main financier of Death Row, who was in prison with very limited telephone access. Suge spotted Linwood and came over to talk. He actually gave him a chance to walk away peacefully, telling Linwood, say dude, don't be on that phone. To which Linwood, not knowing who he was dealing with, said, don't be coming at me with all that shit, I'm not from LA. An embarrassed Suge responded with, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you're not from LA, please use all my phones. Just kidding, Suge actually pulled a gun. He proceeded to make both the Stanley brothers strip down to their underwear and even fired a shot into the wall of his own studio to emphasize his anger. He beat each of them to a bloody pulp. To ensure that the two were sufficiently terrified, he took both of their IDs so he could easily find them if they were stupid enough to contact the police. Shockingly, that's exactly what they did as soon as they were released, battered and bloody from the Death Row studios. So what did Suge Knight do to defend himself in court when Linwood and George Stanley tried to sue him? Well, he gave the prosecuting attorney's daughter a record deal. He bought off their own defense with the promise of a recording contract, but thankfully, the prosecutor, Larry Longo, was later fired from the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave us a thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe to our channel.